Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Welcome back to another episode of the Work From Home Show. I'm your host, Naresh Vissa, along with my co-host, Adam.
Howdy, howdy.
And we have Pat Donohoe, founder and CEO of Paradigm Life, back with us. He's also host of the Wealth Standard podcast and #1 best-selling author of Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. You can check that out on Amazon. Really, really awesome book. And this time, on the last episode you heard from Patrick, he talked about kind of how his company was transitioning to working from home. Now we're going to talk a little more economics and how working from home is going to change the way we do business and the general outlook. So Patrick, thanks for coming back on the show. Thanks for giving us your time.
Hey, it's a pleasure, Naresh. This is, you guys have an awesome podcast. The interview was last time was amazing, so I'm excited for this one too.
So let's get to the kind of overarching question, and that's, look, people listening right now, they're working from home or they found our podcast because of this coronavirus, and we don't know what's going to happen with this virus. We don't know if it's going to go away in 5 days, 10 days, or 10 months. We have no idea. But what are your thoughts on the destruction that the virus has done to the economy and how working from home is going to affect industries moving forward?
You know, I've thought about this a lot because I went to a finance conference that's put on every year by kind of Tony Robbins' inner circle, and it's usually up in Whistler, in British Columbia, or this year it was in Sun Valley, Idaho. And one of the keynote speakers was a guy named Eric Prince, and Eric Prince is the former CEO and founder of Blackwater. Now, Blackwater is that private military group, right? It gets heat for everything. And he gave a talk about what is going on with the coronavirus, and this was a month and a half ago before anything really hit. So I've kind of known about this, and where I've continued to gravitate is I'm not as concerned with the illness, right? I'm not concerned with the virus itself. I'm concerned more about the disruption it's having to not just the local economy, but the world economy. Starting with supply chain in China, where we're dependent on so much from China. Like, I don't think people realize it. I was surprised when I started to see the statistics of textiles and medicine, parts and elements for computers. It's crazy. They're part of pretty much everything. And they're integrated through the Belt and Road Initiative. They're integrated into multiple continents, dozens of major countries. So I think we haven't necessarily seen the results of the disruption in the supply chain yet. We're going to see it. Right now, we're just dealing with really the fear and anxiety that people have regarding the virus itself. And I believe that will I think that'll end sooner than the economic ones. But I think right now it's just going to be interesting to see how things all play out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, especially people think, I don't want to go anywhere. I'll just order it off Amazon. People need to realize how much stuff on Amazon is being private labeled and ordered from China and brought over. So I think that'll be interesting. But we mentioned last time we were talking about the impact that it could have on your lease, your commercial lease, and how if more people stay from home, you won't need the 20,000 square feet that you have. How do you think the work from home movement, if more and more businesses do have to, do need to downsize their space, how might that impact us?
I think that's a longer term thing, because leases typically are anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years. I think it's going to be interesting because I don't think commercial real estate is going to be impacted as much as local business, right? Because I look at especially here in downtown Salt Lake, all the conferences have been canceled. And there's so many restaurants and so many locations that they set up shop with the assumption that they're going to have business from these conferences, and now they're gone. Sporting events that the NBA's canceled, the NHL's canceled, right? These are businesses that employ a lot of people and have a multiplier effect, which means people come downtown and they eat before they go to a Jazz game, right? Or they'll pay for parking. And same thing with restaurants and commerce and business, right? I think it's going to be more the multiplier where smaller businesses, they're reliant on a workforce being in the downtown area. I think they're going to have the first major impact because those aren't very high margin businesses. I think that's the first thing. And I believe, this is how efficiency is discovered, right? When people see alternative ways of doing things, they're less expensive, more productive. People are just going to gravitate toward that. And that's where you have, the distribution of resources in society and the economy. Okay. And they're always going to be adjusting. And this is a great opportunity for them to adjust. And some people are going to get negatively impacted. Others are going to figure out, ways to thrive.
Well, I've been working from home for the last 7 years full time. And really, Adam and I talked about, I actually started with the whole working from the dorm when I was a college student. So it really even longer than that, probably 12, 13 years that I've been working from the dorm or working from home. And I've been saying for the last 5 or 6 years that the next major comeuppance, the next recession is going to force the corporations and the employers to do a couple of things. Number one, to cut full-time staff and instead outsource to like India or just outsource overseas. Number two, to do the same thing but outsource to independent contractors or solo consultants or just other companies like small businesses. And number three, to stop paying for those really expensive commercial leases and have whoever they do have left full time, have them work from home. Those were my three predictions for over the past couple of years, and I just never knew when that next recession or that next issue was going to come. What do you think about my three kind of predictions? Are those going to be implemented moving forward because of this coronavirus?
It's a great question. And I look at, our generation, I think I'm a little older than you, but we're in kind of a similar generation, right? It's possible for us, right? Because we grew up in a different environment, right? We had computers in school. We had computers when we first got our first jobs, right? And the older generation, there's going to be a lot of, stickiness, right? Because of what they're used to. And I think it's going to be much more difficult for them than it is for younger people. And right now they hold the positions of prominence. And because they hold the positions of prominence, okay, they're the ones that dictate policy. They dictate business direction. So it'll be interesting. I think a lot of businesses are going to be caught off guard and essentially forced to do it. Now it's how companies adapt. And I find it's going to be very interesting. I look at leadership that exists with older individuals. They are going to have a harder time unless they integrate into their leadership younger minds. It's going to be very challenging for them.
Yeah, I think we're going to run into a big problem. This is going to get slightly political, but with more people going towards working from home, creating their own business, becoming 1099 employees or business owners, they're going to have to do something because healthcare costs, if you want to know, going virtual, they go up, especially if you're your own business owner and you're going 1099. It can be hard to get covered. And the political leaders haven't acknowledged that. And they're going to have to do something about the ability to get health care. They're going to have to relook at the tax code because when you're working for yourself, your taxes can get, you don't have taxes withheld, so it can be a big tax issue. And I think we're going to see a lot of change on those fronts whenever the old guard goes out and the new guard comes in. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's such a great point. I mean, right now there's, political policy that's in place, right? It's old. And I think we're seeing all the different red tape that exists with regards to what, the president's been trying to pull off, whether that's, his rhetoric or whether that's true, I have no idea. But it's one of those things where I think laws has to have to be much more flexible than they are. I think government involvement should, they should get out of health. Anyway, we don't need to go battle that, right? But yeah, a lot of things have to change. And, Adam, one thing that came to mind when you were talking is there's an idea that I've been thinking about for a while, and I've actually started a book on it. But I believe that the older generation, the majority of them will not be able to retire. They think they're going to have enough money at 65. They think there's going to be enough money in Social Security and Medicare. I don't believe that's the case. I've run numbers. This is my field and my expertise, and I believe that people can actually retire sooner if they think about it. If they're willing to take their knowledge, their experience, their expertise, and be able to provide that on a part-time contract basis from home. And I believe it's a huge opportunity for people to live the lifestyle that they wanted to without having to quit cold turkey and live off of their savings and Social Security. So I look at really a huge opportunity now where when somebody's punched in the face, they're like, oh, wow, I'm vulnerable. Okay, I think this is a big punch in the face for older individuals where hopefully they look at this as an opportunity and start to adapt and make changes to whether it's their business or their profession. Now's the opportunity more so than ever. And that's why I'm super grateful that you guys are doing this podcast, because it's a message that's so needed, especially among the older generation.
Yeah, and I know Naresh has a question. I'm just going to say one quick thing. I definitely agree. I think the idea of retirement is going to change. And the sooner that the people start adapting to that and realize that they still have value even after they quote unquote retire, I think the sooner that happens to society, the better.
I agree.
Well, talking about retirement, Patrick, and you have how many clients at Paradigm Life now?
Just over 6,000.
6,000. Okay, wow. That's for a private financial planning business. That's wow. Okay, that's congratulations to you. And I'm sure many of your clients are retired. Is that correct?
Yeah, our average age is in the early 50s, right? So we have some clients, but part of my mission, my message, and values is to not retire, right? I don't think retirement's good for you as a person. People are meant to be productive. They're not meant to stop, right? We're meant to keep going. And I believe that a lifestyle that mixes in the things you love to do, and the enjoyment of life, it doesn't have to be put off to later ages. I believe that there are ways in which you can set yourself up so that you can have a very mixed lifestyle forever, but continue to work and continue to be productive. Because if people aren't growing, they're dying. And growing in large part is because I think we're meant to provide value and contribute to others. And that's where I fundamentally disagree, but with the notion of retirement. But then going to the actual retirement planning and the assumptions that are being used, we're seeing that with the pension crisis. We're seeing that with people so reliant on the market for their the pulse on their well-being, which I think is stupid, right? People's well-being should not be based on how much money they have in their 401k, but yet that's where we've gravitated to. So I can keep going on about that, but I really do believe that as life expectancies go up, as the technology and healthcare goes up, we're able to understand more about our body. We're able to have whether it's supplements or other technologies that allow us to live longer and live with more vitality. Stopping contributing is going to quickly curb that. So I look at right now, again, it's the opportunity where you get punched in the face, you get your system shocked, and it's time to become aware of even more than you were aware of before.
So the people who are working from home, I love it because like my wife and I went to Oktoberfest 2 years ago, and I was working from Germany and doing stuff and didn't really miss a beat. And it only took a couple hours, like 2-3 hours in the morning whenever I woke up. I could do that. Now my concern is, and Patrick, I'd love to get your take on this, is as people gravitate towards working from home and being virtual and start realizing the benefits that can come from it, is that we're going to see people not leaving the workforce and creating that issue where there's not the upward mobility that there was before, because your future CEOs, they realize they can work until they're 80 or 85 or whatever, and that upward mobility might get decreased a little bit. What are your thoughts?
That's a great comment. I thought about that as well. And, I look at if that's okay, right? If older individuals continue to innovate, they keep themselves healthy, vibrant, right? They are being able to provide leadership, right, that grows the company and increases their footprint and their ability to impact and influence more customers. I think that's awesome. I mean, Warren Buffett's kind of in an older age, and there are a lot of prominent people there. Bill Gates as well. He's still doing incredible things humanitarily. I'm fine with that. I look at, though, like the nature of competition in the market, right, where you have the older guard. If they don't innovate and they continue to stay there just because of money, right, that becomes a huge issue. And so hopefully the market will see that, especially if the business is not innovating. But, Adam, a big thing for me is things are going really quickly as far as innovation is concerned. And I believe if companies don't innovate, then they're going to have some very hard times ahead of them, because the expectations of customers continue to go up more and more. Now, who knows how that's going to be impacted based on what's going on right now. Okay, I think it's actually going to be worse because people are going to start to value things they didn't value before. Toilet paper being one of them, right? Nobody's ever going to forget that for the next 10 years. It's like whenever you go buy toilet paper, you're like, ooh, I remember when all these shelves were empty, right? It's one of those things where I think these are the times where we value our health, right? We value the luxuries of life, right? We value certain things way more because we don't have them because they're scarce. I mean, right now my kids, I created a routine for my kids because school has been canceled. So last night we had kind of a family meeting and talked about what are you hearing? What are you afraid of? Like what's going on? What are people saying? What do you believe? And then we kind of cleared the air there and then created a schedule for today and a schedule for tomorrow so that they continue to have a routine, which will carry into next week when they don't have school. So that's where we established a good calendar, and then part of the calendar was that they're going to look into what's going on. They're going to do some research on the global supply chain, as well as case studies of people that actually got the coronavirus and then recovered and are now healthy. So they're going to be presenting that on that in about an hour when I go home. But it's one of those things where it's just a great opportunity for stuff like that.
Talking about toilet paper, before this toilet paper crisis that we're now in, my wife's birthday is coming up. And just for fun, I got her as one of her gifts on Amazon. It was a roll of it's like special toilet paper. It cost $10 for this roll. And it says, I love and it's like a picture or like a emoji of a turd. So it's like, I love the out of you. And so I was like, let me just get this because it's funny. It's a cute birthday gift. And 3 days later, the news starts reporting that toilet paper is out everywhere. And I was like, whoa. And I went to go check to see if the toilet paper I bought is still available. And that's gone too. And I'm positive other men were not buying gifts for their wives. I think people are now paying $10 for a roll of toilet paper. So, I mean, it's just kind of funny how people have gone insane over toilet paper.
Yep. Yeah. And it's important to, you see these opportunities that are coming up. Because of that, I mean, if you can get to the point where you realize what people are needing or wanting and find a place to get it, then you can take advantage of the opening in the marketplace.
Well, yeah, I mean, an ad I got today on this topic, right? An ad that was, in one of the feeds was this. It was insane. It was like $400, right? And I guarantee it's only $100 usually, but now because they're trying to capitalize on the opportunity. It was one of those bidets, right? Where you just put it on top of your toilet, right? And it, it cleans you, cleans you, air dries you.
Oh no, those are usually $400. Those are expensive.
Yeah, whenever there's scarcity, people try to, solve problems. And that's what's amazing about human beings is if you have that mindset, right? You're looking at this and like, okay, how can I add value? How can I add value? And that's where nobody has toilet paper. We sell this bidet. Usually only costs $100. Let's try to sell it for $500, $400. Supply and demand.
Yeah. Well, that's why we started this podcast, because there was a huge need for it. There was a huge demand for this type of information because so many people all of a sudden are now working from home. And one more question. This is probably my last question, Patrick, but you were talking a little bit about retirement, and some of our listeners could be retirees, or maybe they were forced into retirement. And so they're at home now. So they're not really working from home, but they're at home and they might be listening and they're thinking, oh, maybe I should do something. What's your kind of coaching for retirees who are now at home?
Wow, that's a loaded one. There's a lot, man. I mean, I would first start with, what I call the human life value statement, where you take an inventory. It's similar to a financial statement, right? Financial statement, assets, liabilities, income, expenses, right? But you do that with what you're good at, right? You take inventory of your skills, your experience, your, positive attributes that are of value to others, right? I think that's the first step. And then you network, right? Network on, LinkedIn is a perfect way to do that. Okay. But also you got to look at, businesses. Businesses during these times are going to rely more on contractors, right, than they are on actual employees, because there's a higher expense that usually goes into that. So there's going to be opportunities especially if you have a professional network of people that, are either continuing to work or are going back to work or are still working, right? I think that's the best place to start is with your warm network. And there are a number of podcasts that talk about, the boomer revolution or the second career, third career. So I would start there, and you're going to be surprised. It's like for every position that you can think of, there is contract work opportunities. And I think people, just for good livelihood, not necessarily if they need money, but good livelihood, just to keep yourself, focused and on top of things and growing. And I think that it's dependent, again, as I said before, dependent on your ability to produce value for somebody else. So I look at it as a great opportunity right now for people to kind of go back to work and find something that is conducive to their lifestyle, so that they continue to do cool things, go to Oktoberfest, but still have the opportunity to provide value to others, regardless of where they are in the world.
Yeah, and I think the value of networking, you can just look at this podcast here with Naresh and me. You never know where you're going to find those relationships. I mean, people know he was my intern. What was it, 13 years ago, and look, we're working together now, and we're doing a lot of great stuff together. So you never know where that networking is going to come in. Pat, we haven't really given you the opportunity so far. Can you tell us kind of what products you offer at Paradigm Life? Like Naresh mentioned the whole life insurance that he has through you. Kind of what products does Paradigm Life offer?
I mean, I would say first and foremost, our bread and butter is education, right? So we provide a ton of online education. Then our philosophy, right, is that the foundation of your financial life is a specifically designed whole life policy that has all sorts of different characteristics, but it's not the end all be all. We have strategic partners that offer legal services, accounting services, traditional investment, alternative investment. So that strategic network, right, is a powerful resource. And then we also offer kind of continuing education with regard to college planning, income planning. But in large part, yeah, we stick to the financial vehicles that we know are going to work and establish those as your foundation. And then what we build on top of that is investments, typically investments that provide cash flow, and that's done through our strategic network. But then in regards to other types of your financial plan, right, or your wealth strategy, it's estate planning. If you're a business owner, right, it's properly establishing your entity and making sure that you're taking advantage of all the tax benefits that exist there. So there's so many different aspects of it, but we start with the foundation, and then building on top of that has to do with mainly our strategic network, but also we offer some different resources internally.
Yeah, and Adam and I are going to have a separate episode. We're going to dedicate it to real estate investing. And for those listening, stay tuned for that, because I'll talk a little bit about how I use the products that Patrick has provided to me, the whole life, and how you can use that to invest in real estate or really invest in other things, maybe invest in this down market that we're currently going through. But just stay tuned for that episode. And Patrick, awesome being on the show. Thanks for coming on a second time. Your website, www.paradigmlife.net. That's paradigmlife.net. And any last words, Patrick?
Yeah, and the podcast is the wealthstandard.com, right? That we're trying to be a little bit more proactive in regards to a lot of the current events. So definitely check that out as well. Awesome.
And again, for those listening, check out our website, www.workfromhomeshow.com. That's workfromhomeshow.com. And if you have any questions, comments, if you have a question for Patrick that you want us to forward along, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Reach out to us. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Work From Home Show. And until next time, keep on working from home.